لوجوس تي في. أن نحضر كل إنسان كاملا في المسيح يسوع.
Good evening and welcome to the Coptic Cafe program here on Logos TV. Thank you for watching. This season of the year, this time of the year, marks the beginning of the Advent for us, the Coptic Orthodox Church. And usually this time coincides with the celebration of the Thanksgiving festivities here in the states of United States. And also to be soon followed by the blessed midnight praise of the special Coptic month of Kiyak. And then we celebrate the New Year, and we end our preparation for the coming of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ by celebrating Christmas. So on behalf of the Coptic Cafe family here at Logos TV, we wish all of you a blessed season and a beneficial fast. This evening we would like to discuss two items. The first hour of the program, we're going to talk about Thanksgiving and the opportunity to be thankful to God. We have some videos as well as guests in the studio to discuss this and have it as a dialogue. And the second half of the program, we would like to cover a part that accompanies Thanksgiving, and that part is charity, charitable work. And we would like to also discuss and see who is more qualified to perform the charitable work. And we also have some videos and interviews to discuss and comment and take your feedback. So we welcome your participation here on the program, as well as the participation in the studio. And now I turn to the blessed guests in the program. Thank you, Peter, for being here this evening. Peter Abraham.
Thank you for having me, Abuna.
And Ramon Tedros, welcome back to the program.
It's a pleasure,
Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Sure. Before we get started, the celebration of Thanksgiving is not something that we grew up with, those who grew up in the church, in the Coptic Orthodox Church in Egypt, in our homeland. And certainly with all the turmoil that's going on in Egypt and the changes and the uncertainty, it is a great time to be thankful to God at this time. But before we get into that, I want to get your reaction as to someone who grew up here in the States. You celebrated Thanksgiving, I imagine, all your lives. But it is not something that was started by the church. As a matter of fact, the church adopted the celebration, and we try to make it on the weekend before the Thanksgiving to avoid the fast and all of that. So what's your reaction to Thanksgiving feast as in general here in the States, Peter?
Well, I think it's a time for people to really evaluate their lives, look at everything they have, and often the holidays are marked with family gatherings, lots of food, festivities with everyone joining together and kind of communing. And so it's really a time for you to take stock of what you have, what you might want to have, and kind of look forward to the future with thanks for everything that's happened to you so far and what will happen in the future.
Ramon?
Yeah, but I think it says a lot that the Thanksgiving holiday is the longest holiday of the American calendar year, the business calendar year, though. We have Christmas and we have Easter and everything else. Thanksgiving is only a holiday that's 2 days, federally mandated holidays. So I think those who initiated it realized the importance of Thanksgiving, and it goes right along with our church. Everything we do starts with Thanksgiving. So the principle is wonderful, but I think over the years it's sadly transitioned into more of a, like Peter was saying, it's kind of maybe a time when people get together. They call it Black Friday. I was at Target last week, and they actually have a Thanksgiving card section, but it doesn't say Thanksgiving. It says Happy Turkey Day. So we maybe have lost the intent or the meaning of the holiday. Hopefully, we can get back to that.
A practical point, oftentimes the holiday comes during the fast in the church. And of course, the tradition in America is to celebrate the day with a turkey. How about that aspect of it?
I mean, I think the bigger and more important point is the socially accepted and kind of made strong idea of reflection. It's not necessary to have a turkey to reflect on what you have, or to enjoy your family's company, or to enjoy just even the holiday spirit that accompanies this entire season, not just for Thanksgiving, but going up until Christmas. So, I mean, as far as turkey goes, some cultures, may have a similar feast or for Thanksgiving, but not have turkey, might have some other food. So the food isn't as important as what's going on around the food.
Well, let's turn to the video list. If we can prepare video number 8. If we can play that clip. And this is just a short video that puts together the history of Thanksgiving, and to understand as immigrants or as first generation. Of course, hopefully the second and third generations already know what the holiday is about. So if you could watch video number 8 to bring the viewers, the blessed viewers, up to speed on how this holiday originated here in. And incidentally, we welcome your phone calls here at the station to take your questions or comments. The phone number here is 818-342-3388. 818 area code, one more time, 342-3388. We welcome your contribution and participation. Let's now turn and watch video number 8.
The story of the first Thanksgiving. Around 400 years ago, many people in England were unhappy because their king would not let them pray to God as they liked. The king said they must use the same prayers that he did, and if they refused, they were persecuted, imprisoned, or even killed. These Englishmen left their homes and went far off to a country called Holland. In Holland they were happy, but they were very poor. And when the children began to grow, they became less godlike and did not want to pray anymore. After much talking and thinking, these English people decided to embark on a pilgrimage to the New World, America. They set out on a small ship called the Mayflower to take them across the sea. There were about 100 people on board the tiny ship. It was crowded, cold, and uncomfortable. The sea was rough. They were 2 months sailing over the Atlantic Ocean. At last the Mayflower came in sight of land. The month was November, and it was cold. There was nothing to be seen but snow, rocks, and hard, bare ground. They were tired and cold from their long journey, and hungry too. No one had enough food to eat. Many of them became sick, and by springtime, almost half of the people died. In spring, the sun shone brightly. The snow melted, and the leaves and flowers began to emerge. Some friendly Indians had visited the pilgrims during the winter. One of the kind Indians was named Squanto. He stayed with the pilgrims and taught them how to plant their corn, peas, wheat, and barley. The summer came, and the days were long and bright. The Pilgrim children were very happy in their new home, Plymouth Rock. When it was autumn, the fathers gathered the barley, wheat, and corn that they had planted and found that it had grown so well that they would have quite enough for a long winter that was coming. "Let us thank God for it all," they said. Then they decided to have a grand Thanksgiving party and invite the friendly Indians. They prepared wild ducks and geese and great wild turkeys. There was deer meat, bread, and cakes. They had fish and clams from the sea nearby. The friendly Indians all came with their chief. They were dressed in deer skins, and some of them had the furry coat of a wildcat hanging on their arm. Their long black hair fell loose on their shoulders and was trimmed with feathers or foxtails. Before they ate, the Pilgrims and the Indians thanked God together for all His goodness. And so the story goes of the first Thanksgiving celebrated in Plymouth Colony nearly 400 years ago. As you sit down with your friends and family this Thanksgiving, remember this original tale and give thanks for all of God's abundant blessings.
It's quite interesting that this holiday was actually built on the explicit thanksgiving to God for what He has done with the immigrants and how they survived. So this country, in the very beginning, in the founding days, was strongly a strong believer in God.
And what even more ironically is a lot of them didn't make it. So you think if anything,
57 out of 100 survived.
yeah, so that's a pretty low survival rate. You think if anything there would be more grumbling and ingratitude towards the fact that a lot of their friends and family didn't make it. So this is sort of a very Christian virtue of Thanksgiving in every condition for every condition. So I think a lot of people will be surprised the similarities between the early Puritans that came here and a lot of our church traditions. Their masses when they came here in the 1600s were on Sundays were from 8 a.m. to 12 noon, and so this wasn't just a quick prayer kind of saying grace. These people were dedicated to God, and they showed it in every way.
It's always it comes to mind the passage from the Gospel of St. Luke. In chapter 17, when the Lord Jesus Christ healed 10 paralytic people. And they went away, of course, happy that they received the healing, but only one remembered to come back and give thanks. And Jesus, son of Sirach, mentioned this point, and he says that it's much easier to give thanks to God during time of affliction, but it's even more important to be reminded at time of success, because when people gain the success, sometimes God is not the first one we run to. Peter, do you identify with that, or do you know?
Yeah, I think it's very simple for at least people my age, say college students, for example, to pray or to fast or to do whatever during time of finals, midterms, the seasons that they need something. But I think it's more important to realize the week after finals, the week after midterms, the ones that have kind of a lull in the quarter, how they're behaving at that point, that probably is more demonstrative of their perspective, because it's easy for them to, when they want something, to be able to give thanks or to ask or to pray or whatever, but it's harder when things are going okay.
Ramon, is this human nature, or is this a cultural thing, or a combination?
I think the culture itself has led society to drift away from God, not just on Thanksgiving, but in every other holiday. So I think, like I was mentioning, it's about turkey, and it's about, Friday, Black Friday sales and things. So obviously people are not living in a vacuum. If the society has an atmosphere that's conducive to loving God and thanking God, people might be directed that way. But I think there is a small element in society by design that wants to remove God from everything, and this is just another holiday that they don't want to talk about what the original intent of it was, and I think it's also I think it's also interesting that a lot of the controversy when you talk about the Thanksgiving between the Indians and the Pilgrims becomes about how they fought and disease was spread, and the story sort of shifts into a whole other direction, and people don't really get the true inspiration out of the holiday of Thanksgiving.
And I want to point out that it's our role as Christians to make sure that we invoke God in all of this. It is not a sin to go out on Black Friday and catch all the
miss liturgy for it.
There's that too, or Cyber Monday. That's not the issue here. The issue is abandoning God and changing the whole tradition, not to be focused around God, but to be to miss God in the middle of all of this. So I think our part as Christians is to remind our young ones and the youth sitting around the table, and you mentioned, Peter, that this is a time where families gather together. This is an excellent time to take the opportunity and deliver all the important characteristics that we want to build in our children. Again, Jesus, son of Sirach, says that building the character of the young people around the dinner table is much more fruitful and productive than all the schooling that they would get for a number of years. Sometimes we have the blessings, but we don't see it. And it's all around us. What causes someone or hinders someone's eye from seeing God's blessings?
I think ingratitude comes from a little bit of envy. Sometimes we don't look at what we have, but what we don't have. We look around and see what others have, and that's our focus. And I think when someone loses focus on the blessings they have, it's hard to be thankful. Sometimes through misery of others, we become thankful, unfortunately, too. So we wait till something sort of really strikes us as, wow, I'm glad that didn't happen to me. So it's more wise to recognize something before you absolutely have to and are forced to. And so I think it's maybe a little bit of, we need some more wisdom, and wisdom usually will remind us of how blessed we are. And when we get away from a godly atmosphere, we tend to go and focus more on the negatives and what we don't have and what others have and things like that.
And Peter?
Yeah, I think two main things really contribute to people not understanding their blessings. One is that people are easily complacent not to count their blessings, by which I mean people don't take evaluation each day what they have. I think if people tend to remember the negative things that happened that day, if they got cut off on the freeway, or if their boss yelled at them, or they got into an argument with their spouse or their children, whatever it may be, people tend to remember those things, not other things that happened in the day. So the negatives tend to stick out more than the positives. So that's probably one thing. And the other thing is we don't really value what we have as enough. I think in a highly commercialized society where whatever is being marketed to the people is the most important thing, we always have our eye on what's coming next and never really appreciate what we have. So complacency and kind of a culture of trying to gratify ourselves with what's coming next, probably.
Okay, I want you both to watch this next video. It's video number 6, if we can get that ready. And I'd like to get your feedback on it. This is someone who's asking God to show him what to be thankful for. So it's video number 6, and we welcome your participation here on the Coptic Cafe program on Logos TV. You're welcome to call us at 818-342-3388 to get in on the conversation. Let's watch video number 6 together.
Lord, I'm struggling. Show me what I have to be thankful for. Lord, I'm struggling. Show me what I have to be thankful for.
After all this, Lord, I'm struggling. Help me see what I can be thankful for. Why is this?
I mean, a lot of the benefits and the blessings he had were things that we take for granted, and they're not very obviously apparent to the person. So their health, for example, is one that's a big one. Like Ramon said, it's not until someone loses their health or someone close to them loses their health that they realize that having health is such a blessing, a healthy heart, and able to be mobile and to do all those things. And he's not evaluating those things probably because he assumes that it's a given, something that he should have. So there's a sense that, you know, I should have this, I should have this health, I should have these blessings, but there's no gratitude for where those came from originally. Even if you've had them your entire life, who's to say they can't be taken away or can't be, you know, lost? So he's not evaluating his life, you know, with a clear lens. So he's not taking them.
Yeah, but I think this is something, and maybe it's part of human nature. If we go back all the way to the Old Testament, we see the Israelites, how many signs, one after another, God would show them, you know, whether he's punishing Pharaoh, whether he's bailing them out in the desert, and they still, you know, don't have the trust in God or the ability to see what he's done for them. I think that's the same thing, like Peter said, we get complacent. But I think one of the things that really helps is when somebody who did experience a severe loss becomes sort of an instrument or a tool to say, I'm going to let people know and be really a vocal means to let people know how thankful they are. For instance, I've been around many people who have lost their father, or people, I know somebody who's waiting for a kidney transplant. And it's nice when those people are very godly. Their message is much more accepted, and it makes people meditate a lot more on what they have, because they end up hearing it from that person specifically. So I think those people have a role to play in making us more thankful for what we're not going through. And to get the Dennis Prager streak alive, we always quote Dennis Prager, I think, on every show. He always says that one of the clear signs of wisdom is to know what something feels like without experiencing it yourself. So that's pretty much what this guy didn't do. Is he didn't know what blindness was like. He didn't know what somebody who's paraplegic or anything like that was like. For him to realize that, we're very blessed.
And this is also the comment of St. John Chrysostom on his commentary on the Gospel when we read the blind man Sunday. Many people are confused as to why was the man born blind. Was it just for God to show his glory? And many people look at it as injustice. Is this the only reason? But St. John Chrysostom's explanation in all of this is, did the man not get born? Having life is a precious thing. He's missing the sight, but that's all he's missing. Otherwise, he's a whole. He's complete. So his commentary is to give thanks to God for everything and not just concentrate on the one thing that we don't have. I'm going to get back to your comment, Ramon, about having someone who can witness and can speak much more with power if they are themselves afflicted. But before we go on, very important point to bring out is, does God need our gratitude? Is that what it's all about? Or do we benefit from thanking God?
I mean, definitely God doesn't need our gratitude. It's not going to make him any stronger or better or anything. But, gratitude, much like God doesn't need our prayers, but we need our prayers to improve our spiritual lives, because they give us a sort of wisdom and a sort of opportunity to reflect on things in our lives that can help us to live better lives, lives with wills more aligned to God's. So the gratitude is helpful for us because we reevaluate our lives. We see the blessings in our lives, and then we're able to help others and to be more generous and to be more faithful because we understand that we have so much.
I really think, too, of the things that offend God the most are ingratitude and disobedience. So I think while he doesn't need it, I think it's very offensive to God when man, who was created by God had God do the greatest miracle in the history of the world and incarnate into a man, and man is still not grateful. I think that's the biggest insult to God that no one can deliver is to be ungrateful for that kind of.
Thank you for that. So it's an important point to bring out that thanking God is for our benefit. And that's why it's important to drill it in our children, as many of the well-behaved children are. They are taught to say thank you. But it's about a bigger topic. It's a bigger subject when they grow into adulthood, is to remember and be thankful. Otherwise, they can easily fall into despair or in depression. Some people ask the question, say, why thank God with all these problems around me? And we alluded to that a little earlier, Ramon. What do you say?
Again, I think when you count your blessings, per se, I think there was a study done before where they asked children before to write for 20 minutes every day for about a month. One group was asked to write about, or the same kids were asked to write about things they're thankful for every day for 20 minutes throughout a certain period, and then another time they were asked to talk about things that made them angry for 20 minutes every day, and then another month they were asked to write about random things, and then they measured their level of happiness, and they were most happy when they were thankful for what they had. So I think it's when, again, we lose sight of what we have and how blessed we are, that we're likely not to be thankful.
And this is a big topic, obviously, Peter, speaking about pain and suffering, but some people do have these thoughts and think, why do I have to give thanks now? I'm not exactly a rich person, I'm not in the best of health.
Yeah, it brings to mind one of the Psalms. I think it's 66, but I'm not sure. It's David, and he's giving thanks for all the things in his life. And it starts out with, give a shout out to the Lord, all you nations, and it continues. And one of the things that David thanks God for is, paraphrasing, of course, I don't know the exact verse, but it says something like, He has cast us into the net, He has refined us as silver is refined, things of this nature. And David's giving thanks in times of turmoil. And of course, the refinement of silver is a very difficult process. There's much heat involved, and there's pounding onto the silver, which is crude at the beginning, but it becomes refined over time. But I think the point to remember is that having gratitude in those times will help us to come out of it with a better perspective, as opposed to being, just dismal the entire time and then come out of it with nothing. We won't have learned anything at the end. So.
Okay. I'd like to have you watch video number 5 together. This is a young man. His name is Nick Vujicic, and he met His Holiness Pope Shenouda one time, and he speaks about motivating people, but he has, by the standards of society, a lot of lacking. He doesn't have almost any limbs, and yet he finds it possible to live a full life. So if we could watch video number 5, please, and we'll come back and comment on it.
I wasn't ready.
I have no arms and no legs, but I'm very thankful that I have my little chicken drumstick here. People freak out when they see me for the first time. It's so cool. I was at a water slide all by myself. Everyone obviously at the bottom of the slide is looking up and waiting for other people to come down, and here I come and they're freaking out. They're like, like this. And I was so tempted to look at myself and go, what happened? And there were times where I sort of looked at my life and thinking, well, I can't do this and I can't do that. And you keep on concentrating on the things that you wish you had, or the things that you wish you didn't have. And you sort of forget what you do have. And there's no point, I believe, in my life where I wish I had arms and legs, I wish I had arms and legs, I wish I had arms and legs, because wishing won't help. But what I've seen in life are just a couple key principles, and the first thing that I've seen is to be thankful. It's hard to be thankful, man. I tell you, when I was 8 years old, I sort of summed up my life and thought, I'm never going to get married. I'm not going to have a job. I'm not going to have a life of purpose. What kind of a husband am I going to be if I can't even hold my wife's hand? It's a lie to think that you're not good enough. It's a lie to think that you're not worth anything.
One more. It's freezing, I can't feel my hands.
I love life. You know, so many people come and say, how come you smile so much? And I'm like, well, it's a long story. But it's very simple at the same time. You see, it's very hard to smile sometimes in life. There are things that happen that you don't know and you don't understand, and you don't know if you're going to get through it. You know, you go through your storms in life and you don't know how long this storm is going to be. And today I want to share with you some principles that I've learned in my life that you can use in yours. Being patient is beautiful. I tell you, it's the hardest thing. But I realize I may not have hands to hold my wife's hand, but when the time comes, I'll be able to hold her heart. I don't need hands to hold her heart. You know, it is scary to know how many girls have eating disorders. It is scary to know how many people are just angry at life because of their situation at home and angry at others. It's scary to know how many people actually feel like they're worth nothing. Every single girl right here, right now, I want you to know that you are beautiful. You are gorgeous just the way you are. And you boys, you're the man.
On this DVD, I share my experiences in life of how I've overcome challenges and seen a new, fresh perspective in life. To be thankful, to dream big, and to never give up. I speak to children, youth, and adults about key issues and principles that I've applied in my life that has given me the strength to conquer all that comes before me.
Quite a young man. You're watching the Coptic Cafe program here on Logos TV. Thank you for being here this evening with us. If you'd like to get in on a conversation, we welcome your phone calls at 818-342-3388. You're welcome to call and share your comments or questions. Your reaction to the video?
I mean, he makes, he's a very inspiring person, obviously, and he's able to talk to many people and to get, not only an emotional but also an intellectual stirring in them. And, and he makes the point that complaining isn't going to do anything, which is, a very valuable lesson to learn, is that complaining just steals time and opportunities for you to do valuable things with your life. And so, when you can give thanks and use the time that you would otherwise be complaining to do positive things with your life, like he's doing, talking to children or youth or whatever, and you can tell how much there needs to be said about a person like this as compared to a person who just wastes and forfeits their opportunities by complaining.
Let's get into it, Ramon. Why don't adults, I'm not generalizing, of course, but it is obvious that a large number of adults don't give thanks or don't remember to be grateful for what they have because of the magnitude of the problem around them at times. Why is that?
I think if you look at any common thread between people who are usually thankful, and again, kind of a general statement, but they know two very important things. They know that God is good, and they know that God loves them. If you know those two things, and you really sincerely believe them, it's hard not to be thankful. Because someone like Nick Vujicic, if you look at the principle, just in this little video we saw, he mentioned several principles. One where, again, paraphrasing a verse, it says, "Do not worry." Who of you by worrying can add one cubit to his stature? And at the end of the video, it said, "No arms, no legs, no worries." So he's fully dependent on God, knowing that God is good despite the condition he's in. And the other thing is, we don't look for perfection or justice in this world. So whatever infirmity that we deal with here, we know it's temporary. And so we know that God loves me, therefore, whatever I'm dealing with now, it's temporary. Perfect justice and perfect love will be completed in heaven. So I think anytime somebody knows those two things, that God is good and that God loves them, you will typically see a pattern of contentment and gratitude.
Peter, how is it that it happens that sometimes a person becomes unappreciative of the things around them, an adult?
Yeah, I think when you're children, when you have the mind of a child, you can become easily excited about something because you have something now that you didn't have a minute ago. Say a toy, for example, from a parent. It's something that you didn't have a minute ago, and it's bringing you so much joy. It's something that you should be appreciative of. But I think as adults, we become accustomed to having things done for a certain way, and we start to grumble when things aren't done even the way we want. For example, I don't know, you go to a restaurant and you have an order placed and something slightly messed up in the order. You're no longer appreciative that you have food in front of you, as opposed to 10 minutes ago when you didn't have food in front of you. You're now grumbling that the waitress or waiter forgot to bring you whatever food and messed up your order. So I think we just become accustomed and almost behave as though we deserve these things, that we ought to be afforded these things, when in reality, very often they're blessings that we didn't have, minutes, seconds, years, whatever ago, and we just don't realize that.
Do you think these are subtle messages to the young people, Ramon, where they grow up and they imitate the adults and they become equally ungrateful, unappreciative?
Absolutely. I'm sure there's a culture. I mean, if you're around that all the time, or somebody's always ungrateful, it's likely to catch on. I mean, again, looking at biblical instruction on little tips on how to be happy. There's a verse that says, whatever things are good, whatever things are noble, whatever things are lovely, meditate on those things. And a truly happy person could look at everything. It could be at a red light and saying, thank God for the red light, so I can reflect, on what I'm seeing around me and beauty, while somebody else can say, God's punishing me, I'm late. And so I think it's a total attitude that someone builds up, and of course people around them are going to help develop that attitude. So people wear you down.
Do you think selfishness has anything to do with gratitude or lack of?
Definitely. I mean, I think if you look, again, using the example of children, you look at a child who maybe, is in a family that is in a more modest situation. They don't have as many toys or gadgets or whatever it may be. When the parents have the opportunity to provide that sort of thing for the child, they're very thankful, because it's not something that they have. As opposed to maybe someone who's spoiled, who has all these things always before them. They become selfish, they take all these things for themselves, and then they no longer appreciate what the parent or whoever is providing these things is doing. So selfishness definitely has a part of it, and also just focusing on the self in general, because you're not appreciative of what others do for you. You're only looking at what I have to have. Yeah, self-centeredness. So selfishness and just being self-centered probably take away much joy in life, because you're only focusing on what I need next, what I ought to do next, and not how to help others or what they're doing for me. So,
what else? I'm trying to bring up all the points so we can come to the point of answers, not just to bring up problems. What else causes someone to be, I'm going to say, accidentally unappreciative or not grateful? Because I don't really believe someone wakes up in the morning and thinks about, how can I be ungrateful to God this morning? I don't think it happens. But if we don't guard and watch out for the events that are going to unfold before us during that day, we're probably going to fall into that trap. So selfishness, self-centeredness, unappreciative.
I think all these are symptoms of having no relationship with God. I mean, I think as soon as someone gets close to God, the gratitude is sort of automatic. I mean, I saw a person in the hospital who was really close to dying. A young person, probably in his mid-20s, got into an accident, and because he was in a very close relationship with God, he had third-degree burns on his body and everything else. He wasn't really conscious. He was just kind of speaking out of complete exhaustion. But I was watching him, and I was with Abuna to give him communion, and he kept repeating, "Thank you, God, thank you, God," as he's rolling over. But he was subconsciously saying that. So I think, had he not had a relationship with God, I can't imagine somebody not much suffering, and the one thing they're repeating is, "Thank you, Lord, thank you, God." So I see that. I don't think conditions can change a person's attitude. I think the relationship is what sort of starts that, and then everything else sort of ensues.
With all the stresses that face our young people in society today, and many of them walk around depressed from the pressure and the stress around them, Do you think anyone who has fallen in the sadness trap would be uplifted by being grateful or start to think about things to be thankful for?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's been plenty of research to suggest that depressed individuals, when they're given opportunities to reflect on things that they have in their life as opposed to all the things they're not able to do, they're I think something like 50% of them were able to get out of depression for a certain amount of time. Of course, clinical depression having some biologic proponents as well, but just speaking at a very surface level about just sadness in general, I think you can be sad when you don't realize what you have, but when you continue to reflect on what you have, it's difficult to be sad, especially when there's comparisons made to other children, other adults, other people in the world where, in this country specifically, there's really no reason to force that upon ourselves.
I'm reminded with a saying that might be beneficial to anyone out there who sees the grass greener on the other side.
Yeah.
It is said, water your own grass.
Absolutely.
Figure out a way to, and even Jesus, son of Sirach, says, be careful not to fall prey to your own thoughts, because your own thoughts can bring about depression and sadness, and you can look around you not knowing what the cause of it is and think you're a martyr or a victim when all along it's a self-inflicted wound. You're watching a Coptic Cafe program here on Logos TV. Thank you for being here with us this evening. We're talking about the joyous season of the beginning of Advent fast, preparing for the coming of Christ. And here in America, in the Coptic Orthodox Church, this season usually coincides with the celebrations for Thanksgiving. So we're talking about gratitude and living a life of thanksgiving. If you'd like to call us here, the phone number is 818-342-3388. We welcome your phone calls and your contribution. I'd like to get video number 7 ready, please. It's a short clip, about a minute or so long. And it is a silent comparison between two people that are doing the exact same thing, but one is doing it in the upper side of town and one is doing it in the poorer side of town. And it's a great reminder not to take things for granted, because each one, it's a split screen commercial, and each one on either side of the screen is not aware of the person on the other side. So let's roll clip number 7 together, please. This is all going around you, and you don't really know what someone else's suffering or fortune is, Peter.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a way to be critical about our own lives without dismissing all of our, what we would call hardships or our emotions. When comparing to others, we're often told not to compare to others in terms of, for envy or other things like this, but some wisdom lies in understanding our blessings by comparing ourselves to others. This doesn't mean that we have to dismiss all the stress we have in our lives and all these things, but with a critical eye, while still remaining, compassionate to people in our society, we can still realize just, the tremendous difference, the great divide there is between, in this case, people with, an affluent culture versus poor culture, but the divide exists in many places. Maybe people who are fortunate to have any given opportunity and those who aren't given the opportunity. So it's not only money, but that's health can be another example, or various opportunities can be. So I think we can be critical while being compassionate, and in that way we can remain thankful for what we have, but also it'll be a call to attend to the needs of those that have less.
Raymond?
And when I think sometimes there's a little bit of a, people go to some extremes sometimes. So some people think the best way to help the poor is to sit next to them in the village and suffer with them, and so to speak, to feel their pain. And that's not really the Christian response. The Christians try to lift them up and to bring them up to the level that God has blessed you with having reached. Because I think it's a
but to sympathize with
absolutely
the
sympathize,
person.
but not by bringing yourself and saying I must feel that pain, but rather I must lift them up and bring them to a level of comfort. I think at times to feel more gratitude, one must know that what our goal is. King Solomon tried everything, and so he's already tested. This has already sort of been means tested for us by King Solomon. He knows where happiness comes from. He knows where what's going to get us to be thankful. It's not to pursue materialistic things and to get what we want, but there's something fulfilling. And I think a part of that is to be a part of changing somebody's life. So when we're blessed, we ought not to feel guilty for our blessings, but to see if we can spread the blessings to somebody else.
In the scripture, we have multitude of examples in the Synaxar and the lives of the saints and the paradise of the fathers about people who are given thanks to God for really very small things, or things that we wouldn't think about. So I think you bring up a good point in asking, what is it that we should be grateful for? Definitely not the materialistic things. And maybe this would change the attitude of many people. Do you agree?
Absolutely. But I mean, you can take small tests, like when you're taking a shower in the morning. Just ponder how blessed you are to have cold and hot water at the tip of your finger. When you take a car somewhere, and really,
you have a car.
Yeah, you have a car, and really, sometimes people get irritated by someone who's always saying, thank God for this and thank God for that. But I think they do it genuinely. They're not doing it to preach to people about their level of spirituality, but I think they genuinely feel blessed in everything they do, and it really is irrelevant what they have or what they're missing out on. But whatever is in their hands, whatever God gives them, you feel like, as Job was, he was just very content, no matter up until he was just as God was grinding him or allowing him to be ground down, he was still thankful and never assumed God left him. So,
Peter.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, in terms of during hardships, I think it's when we look at people going through hardships and see that they're not thankful, we shouldn't be too quick to judge them either. We have to understand and sympathize again that they're going through hardships. But in the Bible it says that not that money is the root of all evil, but the love of money is the root of all evil. So focusing on the materialistic things as opposed to using it for a valuable end goal. So there's wisdom in charity, and there's wisdom that has to go along with how you provide that charity. And I think we'll talk about that in a little bit.
That's the next hour of the program.
Yeah, but it's not something that we can just do without giving it a lot of thought beforehand. Just as love without wisdom can be dangerous. Giving someone something that they may misuse, even though it have a loving intent behind it, might be dangerous. Charity is the same way, and even our sympathy has to be given with some wisdom. So there has to be wisdom behind everything.
We have about 5 minutes left in this hour. I'd like to shift the discussion and focus a little bit about on children and see how we can help them. How can you give wisdom to immature minds? Children, by definition, don't have a fully developed mind yet. They're still in the process. They study, they are building their skills, they are forming their characteristics. How can you empower a child to remember to be thankful?
I think we do simple things, but I mean, the same way that we don't just want a child to or a parent to put money into the donation box in church. We teach them by giving them the $1 or $2. It's not about the fact of them transporting the money into the specific box, but it's about teaching them a lesson. And so I think a child is rooted in the way of God.
And how does that activity relate to gratitude?
Well, this is an example of how you teach them. As far as gratitude, I think as a parent, or it depends on what
To be
someone's...
thankful for what they have and the wealth they
Absolutely,
have.
but I think it also depends on what everyone's abilities are. So, I mean, if you're a parent, that's your duty whether you like it or not. But I think like Nick Vujicic, for instance, he could look at himself and say, what can I offer to the world? What can I help them learn about Thanksgiving? I mean, I'm myself in a pretty bad shape, but he took what God gave him and used it to the fullest. I think there's not many people in the world that would be as useful to teaching people about gratitude as Nick Vujicic. So a lot of people don't realize the talents that God gave them and how they can use them. So I think knowing what talent you have and how to use it best is probably a start, because maybe not everybody's good with children. So maybe understand that this is not my strong suit, this is not what my calling is. He certainly used it to the fullest. And you can tell when the kids were hugging him, they genuinely were moved and touched by him, not just as feeling bad for him, but you can almost see they're inspired to feel like they should be grateful for what they have.
You know, Peter, you mentioned earlier about how easy it is to appease children if they get a new toy or they get something that they didn't have before. The excitement level is high, and they certainly show the emotions of gratitude, and they may hug and kiss their parents or the people who brought them the gift. But verbally, they may forget to say thank you. In the excitement of the moment and all of that. Would it be proper to stop them and say thank you, or the feeling is there and that's enough?
I mean, the feeling is part of it. It's an important part of it. It's definitely, you wouldn't want them to say thank you without really feeling thank you, because otherwise then they learn just to mouth these words and it wouldn't have an effect on their life. But understanding that it's necessary to learn how to display emotion in a proper way, not only in religious context, but just in social context with their friends. If they're upset with a friend, you know, you might want them to approach it with a certain wisdom, like go tell that person why you're upset with them, talk it out, whatever it may be. So learning to display emotion is obviously very important in society and in the church.
But wouldn't it get boring when you're kids get things handed to them all the time because they're kids. That's what they do. They do their little chores, but they get a lot of things back again to the concept of material versus the spiritual. So in the process of getting all of that, how do you remind them and keep planting or watering that seed of gratitude?
I mean, I'm not a parent myself, but I'll speak from what I can
from
see
your
with
service
some
in
of
the
the
Sunday
children.
school program and
Is
your
that
interaction with kids.
It's definitely important to understand when giving is going to be fruitful and when it's not going to be fruitful. Constantly throwing things at kids to have them have the newest thing is not going to benefit them probably in the long run, because they'll become so accustomed to receiving things. But having it to be a reward for some kind of achievement, or have some kind of struggle that they came out of, whatever it may be, that seems fitting in some cases. But I think just to throw things constantly at them and hope that they're going to become gracious at the end or have gratitude at the end, I think it's probably short-sighted. I think you have to space out and understand when to give, but also I think too, just they have to see it in the parents that they're grateful for things that they have, even if it's something that the parents had for a long time. If they're happy to have that thing, whether it be interactions with their spouse or their friends or the church community or the priest, whatever it is, I think you can learn from your parents just to be happy and to be grateful for what you have.
Complaining is the enemy of gratitude, and we can't help it but expect it from children, Ramon. What would you say?
This is where I think, again, I'm not a parent also, but I would think wise parents would likely expose their kids to other lifestyles, not to expose them per se, but to show them how other people are living and to give them an idea. A lot of parents think sometimes shielding their kids from anything that appears negative or poverty or anything is a good idea, but I think to show people, or to show your kids that, here's some examples of people living around the world. I in my church, I offered this bracelet, and it's just a reminder of how many Christians die for Christ every year, about 100,000 Christians every year. We're not talking about third century, persecution. And so I say, when we stand in church here and we are safe and no one's ever assuming they're going to die on their way to church or on their way back from church. Don't take that for granted. So I think continual reminders of how blessed we all are, including them, is a very effective way to always keep them thinking, about Thanksgiving. And then also, the Bible directly, in the book of Numbers, it said, and when the people complained, it displeased the Lord, and the Lord heard it. So to let them know, when you grumble, I'm not happy, God's not happy, and just it's not going to be a, sort of an acceptable type of behavior.
I'd like to close this hour of the program with video number 4. If we can get that ready, please, video number 4. Of course, we've been talking about gratitude, and it's a fitting topic to speak about around the time of Thanksgiving. We also remember that the Lord Jesus Christ himself gave thanks, and he gave thanks to God for revealing the wise things unto the babes and not unto the adults who are proud. So this indeed is the ultimate definition of gratitude, is to be grateful for what God has done for his creation. You've been watching the Coptic Cafe program here on Logos TV. Our phone number here is 818-342-3388. I'd like to leave you with this video, video number 4, please.
It's a long, long journey till I know where I'm supposed to be. It's a long, long journey, and I don't know if I can believe when shadows fall and block my eyes. I am lost and know that I must hide. It's a long, long journey till I find my way home to you. Many days I spent drifting on through empty shores, wondering what's my purpose, wondering how to make me strong. I know I will falter, I know I will cry, I know you'll be standing by my side. It's a long, long journey, and I need to be close to you. Sometimes it feels no one understands. I don't even know why I do the things I do. When pride builds me up till I can't see my soul, will you break down these walls and pull me through? 'Cause it's a long, long journey till I find my way home to you.
Welcome to this hour of the Coptic Cafe program here on Logos TV. Thank you for being here with us this evening. Around the time of Advent, the beginning of the fast for Christmas, here in the United States of America, the Coptic Orthodox Church usually starts the season of fasting around the time of the Thanksgiving celebrations. And this time is also marked with charity work. And this hour of the program, we wanted to dive a little bit deeper about doing the most effective thing to help the poor and the needy. And this is a calling on all of us Christians, as Christ himself said that he will stand at the end of the days, and then he will tell people, I was sick, you visited me, I was hungry, you fed me, and then the people will be rewarded for their actions. I'm joined here in the studio this evening with Peter Abraham. Peter, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
And Ramon Tadros, thank you for being here.
My pleasure, everyone. Thank you for having me.
Sure, glad to have you. Would like to talk about this in this hour of the program, talk about effective charity. Who is more suitable to do charitable work? That's basically the question that I'm going to leave open-ended for you and get your reaction. Ramon?
But I don't think there's one answer to the question. I think there's a combination of things that we could do, but there's definitely things that have been proven that don't work, and I think that's what we need to delve into. And like in everything else in life, we need to know what our role is as God has prescribed it. What did God tell us to do with the poor? Did He tell us to just sort of teach them to fish, or to give them a fish? And I think, unfortunately, we've been misled into thinking that as long as I give something to the poor, I'm doing the right thing, regardless of what the results are. And so, I think sometimes it's better to pursue that goal with wisdom in order to know how to do it right. And I think the Bible gives us all the answers.
Okay, Peter.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, I'm not going to say that there's one particular group of people that they're the only group that can do charity, but importantly, like Ramon said, there has to be wisdom behind how the charity works. The segment is called Effective Charity, and if we're honest with ourselves and we actually want people to gain the most from our charitable works, then we have to look at the attempts that have been made in the past that have been successful and kind of devote ourselves to the ones that have been more helpful to the person. Not to me because I want to look like I'm donating, or not to me because I want to be, seem better or whatever it is. That we have to look at the kinds of charity that have worked and try to implement those.
Incidentally, St. John Chrysostom commented on helping the poor, and he said that if you should give a sandwich to a hungry man, and your purpose was to show off in front of people, like you just said, Peter, he said the hungry man will get the sandwich, so his hunger will be filled. But the man who did the charity may not necessarily get the reward. So God takes care of his little brethren, as he calls them, either way, by someone who means to be charitable or not. But again, the topic this evening is about how to be effective, and we have a few videos here that I'd like to share with you. If we can get started with video number 3, please. And here we want to identify who is the poor. And of course there's a spiritual measure and there's a societal measure. But before we go on to the clip, I'd like to give the phone number to the viewers. We welcome your phone calls and your comments. The phone number here is 818-342-3388. So let's watch clip number 3, please. This is kind of a good segue between gratitude and who really is the poor, your action, Peter.
Yeah, I think, I mean, at least here in the first world, at least here in America, we tend to throw a lot of words around that are culture specific, like we use the word, and I don't mean, the word depressed, there are clinical applications of depression, but someone will have a bad day and they'll say I'm depressed at the end of the day. So we tend to throw around these words that really have true meaning in the world, and if we look at our brothers and sisters across the world, we can really see that there are manifestations of these words, but we tend to throw them around in this, at least in the first world, where we don't, take into account the real just depravity there is across the world. So, being poor in America is not like being poor anywhere else in the world, and I think that's something important to notice from the start.
So, I agree with Peter. I mean, I hate sometimes hearing people say I'm starving. It's not really understanding the true word, the true meaning of the word starving. Because I think very few people that I know here that live in America have ever starved. But again, going back to the Bible and trying to, because I'm amazed at how much of this culture that we're living in now was built on biblical principles and standards. We look at what really is poverty, and the Bible does give us 4 categories of poverty. The first being one that's caused by oppression and fraud, whether it be from other people or the government, where they debase currency or just oppression of some sort. That's one cause of poverty. Another cause is misfortune, persecution, or even just judgment, like in the book of Job, where there was judgment upon Job. So that causes him poverty. The third, again, all biblical in the Old Testament and New Testament. The third being laziness, neglect, or apathy, or gluttony. That's described in Proverbs many times. There's 4 or 5 verses I can read off here from Proverbs that talk about poverty due to someone being lazy. And the final one is just a culture of poverty, where in Proverbs 10:15 it says, "The ruin of the poor is their poverty." So poverty breeds poverty. So I think that's where we're talking about wisdom, is knowing what caused the poverty and being more willing to help if it's in 3 other categories where the person did not, wasn't introduced to poverty because of his own laziness or because of his gluttony or neglect, and that's where we'd be more willing to help rather than sort of enabling somebody who is lazy to continue being lazy by supplying him with more resources.
You mentioned something that caught my ear. How many people have really gone hungry? And when you say it, when you put it that way, we can address the blessed viewers and really say, when was the last time someone was genuinely hungry? I'm not talking about missing lunch or sleeping without supper because of circumstances and you're fasting for a medical test or procedure the next day and you go hungry for that. But really hungry, because you couldn't have food, there's not food around, or there's not money to go buy food. But the book of Proverbs that you bring up, Ramon, is very clear to mention that true poverty is a poverty in spirituality. If someone doesn't have morals or doesn't have the commandment of God abundant in their life, that's the true poverty. And the wealth is your connection with God, your strength that you have between you and God. This is your wealth. I'd like to get video number, where is it? Next video. Number 14. If we can get video number 14 queued up and ready. This is a question about how best to help the poor. So let's watch the video together.
In reference to talking about government's role in a free society, you mentioned some of the market failures, and I think that you may have just passed over one that is of utmost importance, and that is of poverty. And in prefacing my question, I'd like to refer to what President Kennedy said, that if a free society cannot help the many who are poor, it cannot save the few who are rich. And to say that, well, we are a government of the people, and when there is a large sector of the people who are hurting, perhaps it is the responsibility of this government of the people to help out.
Well,
my question is regarding how free are the poor, how free are the unemployed, and how free are those people who are disadvantaged? Right. And so in reference to that, what is government's role?
Sure. First of all,
I'm glad to see one vote for the poor. First of all, the government doesn't have any responsibility. People have responsibility. This building doesn't have responsibility. You and I have responsibility. People have responsibility. Second, the question is, how can we as people exercise our responsibility toward our fellow man most effectively? That's the problem. So far as poverty is concerned, there has never in history been a more effective machine for eliminating poverty than the free enterprise system and the free market. The period in which you had the greatest improvement in the lot of the ordinary man was the period of the 19th and early 20th century. Those of us in this room are the heirs of that. We benefited from the way in which our parents and our grandparents were able to come here. And by virtue of the freedom that was offered to them, were able to make a better life for themselves and them and us. But next, if you look at the real problems of poverty and denial of freedom to people in this country, almost every single one of them is a result of government action and would be eliminated if you eliminated the bad government failures. Let me be precise and specific. Why do we have so high an unemployment rate among black teenagers? It's a disgrace and a scandal. Why do we have so high an unemployment rate? First of all, because we give them lousy schooling through governmental schools, which make them unqualified to hold decent jobs. And second of all, we require employers to discriminate against them by not hiring them unless their productivity is enough to justify a minimum wage. The minimum wage rate is the most anti-Negro law in the books. And it's an anti-Negro law because it precisely, having first not enabled the young blacks to have a decent schooling so that they can have productivity, we next deny them the on-the-job training that they might get if you could induce employers by being able to hire them for relatively low wages to give them on-the-job training that would make them qualify for higher payment and higher productivity. In the third place, we have constructed a governmental welfare scheme which has been a machine for producing poor people. We have induced people to come under control of welfare. I'm not blaming the people, don't misunderstand me. It's our fault for constructing so perverse and so ill-shaped a monster as the whole set of welfare programs we have under which we encourage people, families to break up. We encourage people to move from one part of the country and come to another, under which we have, in effect, made many people poor. And yet, when all this is said and done, have I ever been where?
Welfare or poor.
I have, sir. Of course, more so than most of the people in this room. How many of you have worked a 12-hour day and gotten paid 78 cents? But let me go back to but you know that's all irrelevant. Is there one of you who is going to say that you don't want a doctor to treat you for cancer unless he himself has had cancer? I could go down the line. But when all is said and done, while there are people in this country who are worse off than other people, by and large, even the poorest people in this country are relatively well off compared to the conditions in many other countries in the world. What we take as our standard of poverty, is above the average income of all of the people in the Soviet Union, let alone of the people in India or China or in other countries. Now that doesn't mean we should be satisfied with it. We are a wealthier country and we've been more productive. And we should set higher standards by ourselves. But by the same token, we ought to have a sense of proportion. And we ought to recognize both the source and the problem.
We have this idea of helping the needy, and it is consistent with the Christian mentality of not giving someone a fish, but teaching them how to fish. Your action to the video.
I think I don't know why, but there's a natural tendency to attack wealth in general as if that's the problem of why there's poor people, because, as if one person is poor or one person's rich, then someone has to sort of balance that out, equal it out by being poor. It's not a zero-sum game, if you will. And I think once people understand that, there's enough wealth to be created. God gave us the mind and ability for everybody to live comfortably, and this earth can serve us all. I mean, just as a small example, this country didn't get wealthy by, there's sort of this myth that they're using all the resources of the world and sort of abusing all the natural resources. But when the country was created, they decided, here's how we're going to do things. We're going to be very productive. We're going to create 50 states, and we're going to have each state become sort of its own laboratory. And whatever works in that state, hopefully if people like it enough, then they'll try it in another state, or if it doesn't work, then they'll stop it, and so on and so forth. So for instance, if you see how we do things with agriculture, for instance, every state specializes in a different type of fruit or vegetable. Like, if I say Idaho, right away everybody's going to say potatoes. And so rather than have all 50 states try to, specialize and be the experts in one thing, we say, let's divide up the effort, and let's have everybody become experts, and let's become efficient, and everybody can be wealthy and be well fed and use our resources wisely. I don't think there's a less fertile ground around the world. If we go down south to Mexico, I don't think that the ground's any worse off than it is here. It's just the way that someone decides to run a country by basically economic freedom, allowing people to get as much of society or opportunity as they want. So you tell them you can be as rich as you want, you can be as poor as you want, but you have that freedom. And I think that's where, like Abraham was very wealthy. Our father Abraham was one of the wealthiest people. Job was very wealthy. That did not mean that they were not people who were giving by any means or who helped. So I think vilifying wealth or wealthy people is not a Christian concept, and I think that's what Milton Friedman is trying to say. He himself was a liberal. He started off as liberal. He was actually the one that came up with the idea of withholding taxes every year so that people could feel like they get something back. And he admitted that was one of the biggest mistakes of his life, because it made people feel like they're actually getting something back. It's their own money. So I think as somebody matures, they realize that wealth is not a bad thing. It's just more how to get more people wealthy, and that it's not a zero-sum game. All of us can be well off if we work hard.
Certainly from the teachings of our Lord, wealth is dangerous, and it is easier for a camel to go through an eye of a needle than a wealthy man to enter the kingdom of heaven. But it's not an impossibility. It's just because of the fact that wealth changes people. So put that point aside, we may come back to it later. But Peter, what do you think about the concepts that were mentioned in the video about free market place and how that eradicates poverty?
Yeah, I think the speaker was keen not to vilify wealth, nor was also he didn't vilify being poor, which is an important point. He said it himself, and he said he had to be precise and accurate and clear, in that he wasn't blaming the people who were in these distressing or these poor situations. He was actually saying that the issues come from these constructs that we have made in our government and in our systems to rule, these people. So it's not that they're, lazy by nature, or they're not working hard, whatever it is that there are all these obstacles. That he used the example of black teenagers, for them to find good work. And he said there's issues with education, there's issues with obstacles to getting on-job training. So he's pointing at these constructs we've made to stop the freedom of the market, and saying these are really the issues. We have to attack these issues and not attack the people, but at the same time we have to let people have the freedom to work up to these opportunities, and if they have the opportunities to continue to work hard. I mean, he himself worked a 12-hour day for 78 cents, and so he seems reasonably successful now, but he continues to work hard. So he's working hard, and he wants to fight for people to have that opportunity as well.
We have many means of helping the poor, and of course the institution of the church is the ultimate solution, because the church is selfless in this effort and does not keep anything for itself. It's the purest mission of the church is to care for the souls of every person, bringing every person perfect, and Christ who strengthens all of us. So this is is this the best means? Or is there a better way to serve the poor outside the institution of a church?
You know, when I think it's a cooperative effort. Again, I think the government does have a role in ensuring a just society where people can't be taken advantage of, and so that's their role, is to make sure that, you know, the poverty doesn't is not caused by unjust laws or people you know, abusing each other in a way. But if you go back just to look at how effective the government's been in fighting poverty, from the Great Society and the war on poverty and everything else, there was, I think in the early mid-1960s, those who were in poverty, the level was about 13.6%, and 20 years later, after all these billions of dollars in programs, it was 20 years later, it was still about 13.7. So there's very little change from all these government policies that at some point were actually incentivizing families to break apart. You know, they would basically say, if you are a single mother with an income of $1,000, you'll get government support. But if a father and a mother are both making $1,000, they don't qualify for that government assistance. So essentially, they were telling families, if you break apart, we'll help you. And it's sort of like the devil does sometimes, where, you know, he would tell us, if you just work with me a little bit, I'll give you some things, and that way I have something over you. And so, you know, the fact that he spoke specifically about the black family, it's a very sad path that the black family's taken, from being, you know, a very solid religious sort of unit as a culture, to now having 70% of kids in that black community born out of wedlock, you know, having 75% of black males from age 19 to 29 being in jail. Those are the things that we need to focus on, and how do we improve that morally, and as a result, you know, poverty will decrease. But you can't have broken families without poverty. I think that's automatic.
And I think that's an integral part of the role of the church, is to
keep families together,
to keep the family unit, and to dispense the commandments of our Lord, and this is the best way to keep a family from breaking. And Jesus, son of Sirach, said it's best to be healthy but poor, rather than wealthy but sick, alluding to the people who overwork themselves and overtax their body, running after accumulation of some wealth, and in the end they pay with it with their health. It is consistent with the spiritual nature. Peter, what do you think about the same issue, about the church being is there a better institution to serve the needy than the church? I mean, by the church, I mean Orthodox Church. I don't want to leave it too broad.
Yeah, I mean, I think, like Ramon said, there has to be some integration with other groups, but the church provides so many things that these other groups may not be able to provide, especially for a culture, you know, as small as Coptic Orthodox Christians. The church provides a community for those that are maybe immigrating or are having struggles, you know, money-wise, because they immigrated to the country and are able to find work. They're unable to get their children into schools at, you know, appropriate pace, whatever it may be. There are systems and structures for support that exist in the church that they don't have otherwise. Just those families in the church that they can reach out to help them with, you know, job assistance, or, you know, providing articles of clothing or old furniture, whatever they don't need anymore. You know, there are few services that offer such a robust, you know, with like a breadth of opportunities for those families. And I think, you know, these are all based on the spiritual foundations, of course, of the church, and helping those families that are in distress come to the church and belong to the church as one functional unit. So it's difficult to find a more robust group.
You're watching a Coptic Cafe program here on Logos TV. Thank you for being here with us this evening. The phone number here is 818-342-3388. We welcome your phone calls with questions and comments. If we can queue up video number 11. Video number 11, please, if we can get that ready. This is another avenue for people to help the poor through charitable organizations. But unfortunately, there are many problems with professional fundraisers, as we will see in this report. So if we can roll video number 11, please.
Hello? Well, hi, I'm Janet, and I'm calling from...
Good morning. My name is Jamie, and I'm calling... Can I please speak with that?
Hello?
I'm calling for Woman to Woman Breast Cancer Foundation.
I'm calling from a Child Dream Foundation.
Firefighters Burn Fund. We're doing our statewide drive to provide assistance to burn victims.
CC, National Cancer Coalition. We're still with our state campaign fires.
Now, a lot of these kids have been in the hospital their whole life. They've got cancer, cystic fibrosis, or leukemia. What we're trying to do is just get them out for a few days. Show them a good time and let them be kids again.
We help out with Camp Foster up there for the kids. That's where they send all the burn victims up there to let them know that they're not alone.
The foundation promotes an aggressive treatment for those suffering from breast cancer.
It goes a long way. It's not just about the medication and treatment for children.
I just need to know what amount would be comfortable.
You have a patron pledge of 15 this year. Would that be okay?
I could probably do 15.
How much?
15. Would that help?
Okay. Well, the only reason I asked is because we did raise our price up to 20 this year.
How much of my $15 would go to the women with breast cancer?
100% donation goes into the fund for these cancer patients.
Again, ma'am, NCC is the one that divvies up the funds. Everything goes to
Well, outside of the phone bill and the light bill, I would assume all of it would.
The only thing I know, it does vary from year to year. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization recognized by Congress and approved by the IRS.
And we would be able to set up those programs if it wasn't for kind people like yourself across the state. And on behalf of those guys, I want to say God bless you and thanks again.
4% of 1.3...
Less than 4%.
Less than 4% of $1.3 billion went to the charities, but 96% of the raised funds went to the organizers.
And that's private charities that we suppose are more honest than government, because if we looked into how the government spends money, that's another whole nother show on waste, fraud, and abuse, and everything else. So we expect them to be a little more honest than government in their spending on charity. It's really disheartening that people with good intentions would be misled into donating. I mean, imagine what $1.3 billion would actually do for the poor. I mean, that could literally be the GDP of an entire country, you know, for a year. That's why when we talked about the church being probably the first go-to, if you want to ensure that your money goes to help, I'm pretty comfortable, and I think most Christians, and especially Coptic Christians, are pretty comfortable with the management of funds in our church. And even sometimes they tell you, if you want a specific cause, write it on the check, and it'll go directly there. So I think we have to be wise. We don't just, we have to be prudent with our money and where it goes. It's almost like when the devil is promising things to people and he can't really deliver. That's kind of what I imagine here. Is these people are promising to help people, but they're not helping anybody but themselves.
Peter.
Yeah, I mean, especially a lot of these charities that work for terminally ill patients, like children, women with breast cancer. It's very disheartening to hear that your donation of how much ever money, only less than cents, even cents of it, is going to the patients. And so it's kind of a bad situation. It's a conundrum because these are sort of small businesses that need money to grow, but the money that they're receiving, of course, is supposed to be going to those that they are serving. But when it goes to administrative costs and overhead and whatever, then they're trying to grow their company, which in years later could help people, but might fail before then. So it's kind of a dicey situation. How much of your money is going to those that you want to contribute to.
We speak about this as a collective effort, but when you drill down and you examine just one specific charity and what happens, it is disheartening that the people with well intentions on the other side of the phone, they fall prey into these phone calls and the offer. And I myself am one of those people that would receive a phone call about the local firefighters or local police wanting to raise some funds to hold a celebration party or a recognition or honoring some fallen comrades, and you feel sorry and you feel compelled to give. But I was actually speaking to one of the Anaheim police chiefs, And he said sometimes these people are doing their, it's a scam. They're not even representing the city or anything. They just use their name, and if you give them your credit card number and your donation, they're happy to take it.
But these people are even worse than the scammers, because these people
Legitimate
are legitimate
organizations,
but they're not telling you that 96% of the money is going towards people who are collecting the money, and a little less than 4%. And imagine how many real honest corporation or nonprofit organizations that really do use most of the money on good charity are going to be hurt, because people are just going to lose trust, and then donations will suffer severely.
We have another video that drills down to one of those charities on Fox News. There was a report about it. Video number 12. If we can get video number 12 ready, please, to watch together. And this is an example of one organization that has an egregious act as far as to collecting the money and dispensing it to the needy. Let's watch video number 12 together, please.
Did you know monies donated to charity might not actually be going to charity? I know that's sad, but unfortunately it's sometimes true. And here's how to tell if your hard-earned cash is really going for good.
Alzheimer's Association Aloha Chapter, this is Lydia.
This Alzheimer's Association office at Ward Warehouse is one of 77 chapters across the country. Its staff and programs help the families of 31,000 people living with Alzheimer's in the islands. A recent campaign conducted for the Alzheimer's Association by a mainland telemarketing company generated more than $16,000 in donations from Hawaii, but the charity received just $19.71 of that money. The telemarketing company got more than 99% of the funds, leaving the Alzheimer's Association with only 0.12% of the Hawaii donations. Tim Taravella is the Director of Development for the Honolulu office of the Alzheimer's Association.
First time I knew about these numbers was when you called me about it. And I was just as shocked as you were, and I'm not at all surprised that you made the call. I'm just calling to check on that.
He checked with officials at his Chicago headquarters and found out the Care and Cure campaign that yielded so little money for his charity was not supposed to raise lots of funds. Instead, he says, it focused on finding new volunteers who would donate time, money, and support in the future.
If it was a fundraising model completely, I would have expected the percentage to be much higher in return to the local chapter.
Deputy Attorney General Hugh Jones is in charge of regulating charities for this state.
We feel that most donors that find that information out are more reluctant to give. So it can come back to bite the charity in many cases. It's not unusual that the professional solicitor will keep as much as 90% of the amount raised. Many charities feel that that's 10% more than they expected to get in the first place.
Tim Caminos of the Better Business Bureau has some simple questions for you to ask telemarketers who are required by law to answer truthfully.
You can ask 1, if they are a professional fundraiser, 2, who they work for, and 3, how much of their money actually goes towards the charities.
To make sure all of your donation ends up at the charity you want to support, go to their website and donate directly to the nonprofit online using a credit card or a debit card. Or you can contact the charity and get their address and then support them the old-fashioned way by sending them a check in the mail. Kyoki Kerr, America Now.
Now here's something else you can do. Confirm a charity's 501c3 status with the IRS. Do that before you give them money.
Yeah, the status ensures they're a registered U.S. nonprofit and that your donation is tax deductible.
The problem is not with the charity themselves. The problem is with the professional fundraisers who take the 90% plus off of the money they collect.
99.98%.
Yeah, in this case, in the Alzheimer Fund Association, collected over $16,000, and $19 went back to the organization. Peter.
Yeah, it's outrageous that solicitors can keep so much of the money, up to 99% of the money, when, I mean, a lot of these charities are donating to vulnerable people, veterans, or people with Alzheimer's, people with cancer, people with, the burn victims from firefighters, whatever the charity is. And that's, the emotional appeal is there obviously for people to donate when they hear about these, disheartening stories. And then solicitors keep over 90% of the money anyway. So these stories are in no way getting resolved. not that necessarily throwing money at an issue is the best way to solve it, but even if it were, the money's not getting to these people. So it's just, it's a failure on so many accounts. And, that one director that said that he didn't even realize that the money wasn't going there until he was told by an outside source is ridiculous.
Well, how do you know how much money they raised when they send you a check for $19? You assume maybe they collected 20, 25 bucks and they kept their part of it. And
yeah, I mean, he's obviously not to blame. The solicitors are the one keeping the money, but it would seem a bit fishy if only $20 came in for, out of 16,000. I mean, the number of solicitors calling must be, huge, so I don't know.
Ramon?
Yeah, but I think we as Christians, again, wisdom always comes into play. Any virtue minus wisdom is kind of worthless. So, I mean, we have a duty again to look and say, hey, which organization are we outside the church? Say we go outside the church for specific causes. Are we doing due diligence? Are we doing our homework, so to speak? And there's several tools we can use. There's something called there's a Charity Navigator website, and it looks something like this. It has charts and different scores for how different charities operate. And oddly enough,
what's the website?
The website's called charitynavigator.com.
charitynavigator.com.
Right, and they give you key information where they show you financial performance metrics and accountability and transparency metrics. And at the bottom line, and what everybody should be looking for before they donate is what is your operational what is your operating cost.
So they give you like how many stars the charity has,
absolutely.
And the higher the number, the better the charity
absolutely.
is.
And we should be proud that one of the two charities that shows up under Coptic is Coptic Orphans, and it's rated 4 stars for its transparency and for its overall accountability. And actually, only 7% of all the donations go towards administrative costs, which means 93% go towards the actual charity, and this is really to help.
Do they rate certain charities?
Yes.
Do you have to have like a certain
Absolutely.
amount of money before they rate it, or?
No, there's different size charities. As long as you're registered with the government as a 501c3.
So it would have all the churches in there.
Yeah, most of the churches will be in there. It just depends on what name. You have to look it under the proper name that the church is listed.
Right.
But they're looking at everything from fundraising to program expenses. So you can be the judge of whether you feel like this is a fair amount or not. I mean, compared to the Red Cross, Coptic Orphans has half the administrative cost. That's used for just for the folks to run the place, and they help over 14,000 children in Egypt. And so, anyway, the point is, they have a rating score, overall score of 65, nearly 65 out of 70. So it's a pretty high score.
Okay. Obviously, this is not the only issue that one can face. They mentioned in a clip that one of the ways to avoid all of that is to go directly to the charity's website and donate directly there. And I'd invite all the viewers to go to the Santa Verena charity. This is our official diocese charity that handles all the work in Egypt and in the various dioceses, as well as here in the States. And it is certainly one of the more noble and honorable charities where the majority of the income, 90% plus, goes to the intended target. And that's considered very low overhead to have such a small overhead. But another problem arises when you make the donation to the charity of not having control over where that money goes. And we have a clip here for video number 13. If we can get video number 13 ready, please. And this is an example of donating to the Breast Cancer Society, and you want to help research and development, advancing the medicine field and trying to cure this aggressive disease, but then you find out that part of the money is going to abortion clinics. And of course, many people who would wear the pink or buy the pink in solidarity with the Breast Cancer Week and all of that would not necessarily want their money to go there. So let's roll clip number 13, please, and watch it together.
Out of that brewing clash over money, politics, and breast cancer between two of America's leading advocacy groups for women's health. It all started when Susan G. Komen for the Cure, that's the group behind the Pink Ribbon campaign, withdrew funding from Planned Parenthood. Congress is right in the middle of it, too, and ABC's Claire Shipman joins us now with more on the battle. Good morning, Claire.
Good morning, George. The fallout continues. Taking stock this morning, 26 senators now urging Komen to reverse its decision. 7 of Komen's affiliates in California publicly saying they oppose the move. One top Komen official had already resigned, and now another is threatening to quit. The clash of two titans in women's health care, the Susan G. Komen Foundation,
Together, we can erase breast cancer.
and Planned Parenthood.
We provide basic health care to 5 million patients every year.
This morning, outrage and disappointment engulfing the internet. All lies. You have lost my support. Playing politics with the lives of women. I'll never buy pink again.
I think that it's unfortunate that it has to get political.
And it got political fast when the Komen Foundation decided to pull funding for breast screenings from Planned Parenthood. Insiders say Komen was worried about controversies surrounding Planned Parenthood's abortion services. But this uproar has provided a sudden, enormous cash infusion for the often embattled Planned Parenthood.
The outpouring of support of Women for Women has been extraordinary.
In a few days, they've reaped over $1 million, significantly more than the yearly $680,000 they'd been getting from Komen. Komen CEO Nancy Brinker has offered changing explanations for the decision, but insists it's not politics.
These changes mean that we will be able to do more to help women and advance the fight against breast cancer.
Monique Benoit learned she had a lump in her breast through a Planned Parenthood screening. She worries about services for women in her position.
It's a detriment to the community and to the women they can serve and know they can serve that they're not providing those funds any longer.
Healthcare an issue of high anxiety for women right now, George. 17 million women are without coverage. Komen had wanted to avoid controversy, but it's plunged right into the middle of it. Robin.
And you talked about all those contributions, Claire. I know the New York mayor, Mayor Bloomberg, has donated hundreds of thousands of dollars of his own money, so the contributions are coming into Planned Parenthood.
So sometimes we don't have control over where the money goes.
Yeah, I mean, it's bad enough when you don't have control with your taxes. You know, many people don't know this, but 40 to 50 times more money is spent on HIV/AIDS research and treatment than on cancer treatment. I mean, and while we pray and want to help everybody who's sick, we want to first, I mean, we're instructed to help the most defenseless and helpless first. And a lot of the cancer patients are children. And so, and 93% of HIV/AIDS cases can be treated by just a behavioral change, and that's all, according to the CDC, 91% of HIV cases were from, you know, homosexual behavior. So the government itself uses our tax dollars 40 times more for AIDS than it does for cancer for research. So that we can't control so much because we have to pay our federal taxes. But it's even more depressing when people write a check to the Susan G. Komen Foundation for breast cancer and find out that about $700 million per year is going towards the #1 abortion.
700,000. No, it was $1 million.
Million. So per year was going towards the biggest abortion clinic in the country, in the world even, rather than helping anything to do with breast cancer. So that's very disappointing.
Peter?
Yeah, I mean, it's
not having control over your money that you donate.
Yeah, it's certainly disappointing. I mean, that's obviously one of the benefits of donating in the church is if you have an express desire to help a certain particular group, you can offer, you know, your charitable, your donation to that person. You can even write expressly to that person. You can say, you know, to whatever this city that's been hit with disaster and to the children there or whatever. You can decide. And that's pretty empowering because you see a need and you want to be able to resolve the issues with that need. You know, the issues here, of course, are people donating to something that they are trying to support, but in fact doing something or supporting something that they don't support. So ideologically, it's a bad system, and it's you know, there's no surveillance and there's no transparency with the people who are donating and the company.
We all accept the moral responsibility of the rich to take care of the needy. It is a commandment. The Lord Jesus Christ spoke about social justice. But the key difference here is it is all voluntary. The Lord Jesus Christ gives them the choice. If you would like to come and give your tithe, come and test and see how good the Lord is. In the incident of the apostles, when Ananias and Sapphira sold the real estate and they came back and pretended to be given the whole amount, they died because they lied. It was not the whole amount. And it was told to them, this was yours, you could have kept it. So this is a key difference between the social justice that is promoted by Christians and the commandments of our Lord Jesus Christ and other regimes, socialism or communism, where it is forced upon you. So we all accept the fact that the wealthy corporations, wealthy people have responsibility towards the needy. But is redistribution the solution? If we can get clip number 10, please, video number 10, if we can get that ready to roll. And I'd take your feedback. It's a little bit long. It's about 6 minutes long. And it goes through the problem and the solution. So let's watch video number 10 together.
Although the United States is one of the wealthiest countries in the world, there are still many people living in poverty. People on the left generally argue that government should help these people with so-called means-tested programs, such as entitlements, that redistribute wealth from the haves to the have-nots. And they claim that people who oppose such policies are heartless and uncompassionate toward the poor. My name is Hadley Heath from the Independent Women's Forum, and I'm narrating this Economics 101 video for the Center for Freedom and Prosperity to explain the alternative view. I will show how big government policies hurt the people they are intended to help, and I hope to demonstrate why free market capitalism is the most compassionate economic policy approach to empower people at the bottom of the socioeconomic scale. My argument is simple. In the real world, social welfare programs create a perverse incentive structure and leave out the most important aspect of getting out of poverty, which is economic freedom and opportunity. Let's examine the problem of poverty and its potential solutions with 4 questions. First of all, who are the poor? In too many cases, people are born into poverty and become part of a multi-generational pattern of dependency. Other Americans enter poverty later in life. The top reasons that someone goes onto welfare in the United States are divorce, followed by having a child out of wedlock. Interestingly, reduced wages or the loss of a job are not that high on the list. Secondly, what is poverty? Technically, poverty is defined by federal bureaucrats based on a formula. The chart on the screen shows the various cutoff levels for different household sizes. And to give you some perspective, here are some data on historical living standards. As you can see, poor people today would be considered middle class or above at various points in U.S. history. And here are some figures on per capita GDP in various nations around the world. Sort of explains why some people say that much of the world would be delighted to live at U.S. poverty levels. This is not to diminish the hardship and anxiety felt by poor households, but poverty in the United States very rarely means material deprivation. As Robert Rector of the Heritage Foundation has documented, poor people today have access to consumer goods that used to be considered luxuries. Heck, the average poor person in America has more living space than the average European. Thirdly, what drives poverty? America's poor may have adequate living standards based on historical comparisons and cross-country comparisons, but our goal should be much higher than adequacy. And this is why we should be looking at the negative impact of government. There are lots of issues we could cover, such as minimum wage and unemployment insurance, but let's focus on what really matters in this debate: the huge array of means-tested programs and the record amounts of money that are being redistributed for the supposed benefit of lower-income Americans. As you peruse the information on the screen, it certainly should be apparent that politicians have been throwing money at the problem. But is it working? Well, let's consider the poverty rate, which was falling steadily in the United States in the 1950s and 60s. But then the war on poverty began, and poverty rates stagnated. Why? the most logical answer is that government started subsidizing poverty. The safety net became a hammock. Many poor people don't want to live in dependency, of course, but the welfare state is sort of like flypaper, making it hard for people to climb the ladder. Low-income Americans face some of the highest implicit marginal tax rates of any group in society, because earning more money would result not only in higher taxes, but also in the loss of government handouts. The welfare reforms of the mid-1990s, which actually scaled back the welfare state and decentralized certain handouts, did move policy a bit in the right direction. Millions of people exited welfare and found jobs in the productive sector of the economy. Unfortunately, poverty rates are on the rise again. During President Obama's first years in office, the number of people in poverty increased to a record high level. During the same time period, government spending on welfare has increased dramatically. In his fiscal year 2011 budget, Obama requested $953 billion to spend on welfare, a 42% increase over welfare spending in the last full year of the Bush administration. Sadly, the friendly-sounding idea of spreading the wealth really only serves to discourage people from creating the wealth. This brings us to the fourth and final question: what can fix poverty? Sadly, poverty in the United States has become a vicious cycle. Generations of families have suffered from not just physical poverty, but a poverty of spirit that discourages them from working hard toward changing their own lives. But even this spiritual poverty is supported and not solved by government handouts. Wait, though, there is hope for breaking this cycle. As the economist Milton Friedman said, there has never in history been a more effective machine for eliminating poverty than the free enterprise system and the free market. What makes America so great, and what makes America a relatively good place to be a poor person, is not our long list of federal means-tested welfare programs. What makes America great is our historical appreciation for the economic liberty of all people. But we've been drifting in the wrong direction, and it's time to restore economic freedom and liberate people. Government should maintain a rule of law, keep us and our property safe, keep our currency stable, allow us to trade, and allow us to do business with others without overly burdensome taxes or regulations. By reducing the role of government in wealth redistribution and hopefully eliminating any federal government involvement whatsoever, we can enable more Americans to exit poverty and live self-reliant lives of dignity and self-worth. I'm Hadley Heath from the Independent Women's Forum. I hope that you'll agree with me and that you'll share this Center for Freedom and Prosperity video with others.
Human nature is encouraged by rewards. If you work hard and you get rewarded for it, you want to work harder. But if it's handed to you, then you tend to make do with what you have.
Yeah, I mean, the increase of the welfare state in recent years is it's made it more possible for families to maintain. In that we saw that chart with stagnation at a certain, I think, 13 or 15% for poverty. So as long as there's amenable means to remain in that hammock, as they called it, families are going to continue to do so.
Yeah, but I think most people will be surprised to hear that the top reasons people go on welfare are not really economic reasons. I mean, or they're not started off as economic reasons. 45% of people go on welfare because of divorce or separation. So that's, again, a church issue and a moral issue for the society to work on. Number two is out-of-wedlock children, was 30% of the reason why they go on.
So the total of the two?
So total is 75% of the reason that people go into poverty or on welfare is because of moral reasons. And only 16% is because their earnings have fell. So I think it's time to kind of reevaluate the reason for or what are the problems you have to combat more than economic.
We are running out of time, and we have another video that I really want to show. It's an important video, video number 2. If we can get that ready, please. I understand it's a little bit longer than the time we have allotted for the program, but I will leave you with this video and this thought. It really, the charity, to be effective charity, it takes more than just redistributing the wealth or handing someone a sandwich or something like that. You will see this point made, well made by a variety of pastors on the video that we're going to play. I also want to share with you the teaching of our Lord Jesus Christ when he said he would come back and reward those who gave him food when he was hungry and gave him drink when he was thirsty, visited him when he was imprisoned or sick. And the people who did the charitable deed looked at Christ and said, "When, Lord, did we do this? When were you naked and we clothed you? And when were you hungry and we fed you?" We all know the answer to the question, but more importantly, those well-wishing people, the people who did the charitable deed, did it without knowing that they were doing it to Christ. It was a way of life for them. This was their attitude and approach to life. So when they saw something that needed to be done, they sprang into action and they were happy to do it. So I call on all of the blessed viewers, anything we can do to help embolden our church and to expand the missionary work of the church. It's the safest thing to do if you have the servant heart and you would like to serve the needy and the poor. We have other organizations out there that are working and doing incredible work and excellent job. But it's also easier for the viewers and for everyone who goes to church to participate in the service and to add their effort, their mind, their wealth, their resources to the church and serve in that way. So I'd like to leave you with this video number 2. And before we close, we have just one time for a quick call. Kamal, welcome to the Coptic Cafe program. Thank you for calling. What's on your mind?
Okay.
Hello?
Aywa.
Yes, can you hear us?
Yes.
What's on your mind? Oh, we're having bad connection. Sorry about that. We'll try to get it maybe next episode. But if we can have control room, please roll clip number 2, video number 2, and I will leave you with that. Thank you for the guests who are in the studio tonight. Thank you, Peter, and thank Ramon, and thank you for joining us. Have a blessed season of Advent.
When you give something, you should think, if that act of giving has deleterious consequences, if it actually hurts the people you're giving to, well, then the moral value of giving is sometimes put into question. We have to understand that our intention of wanting to help someone and even doing something doesn't actually mean that those people will be helped.
I could write a best-selling book on all the stupid things I've done out of good intentions, where I thought I was helping the poor and I was actually making the problem worse.
It's in relationships where people love one another and care for one another, where they are respectful of each other enough and trust each other enough that they can engage in constructive criticism, mutual accountability and support. That's when real change happens in communities. It's face-to-face compassion, or de Tocqueville called it face-to-face charity.
What's most difficult about loving the poor and reaching the poor is that in order to be effective, it means that we're going to have to get very personally involved for a long period of time. We're going to be challenged. We're going to experience a great amount of pain. That's why I'm grateful that Jesus had dealt with so much suffering, because we are going to suffer when we try to effectively love somebody. Solutions that we lob over, like a Scud missile or something where we do drive-by ministry and help somebody for a minute, those are not going to be very effective. They're not going to deal with the root issues.
In the 1960s, when Christians got on the bandwagon of government interventionist policies, it seemed as though they would make a grand difference. It took us until the 80s to realize what happens, especially in urban areas, and how they are devastated by that level of economic intervention.
If politics and money were the remedies, then Washington should be the most progressive, the safest, the best educated population. We in Washington today lead the nation in 21 separate categories of poverty expenditure. Explain to me why a child born in Washington, D.C. has a life expectancy that's lower than a child born anywhere in the Western Hemisphere, second only to Haiti. We have the highest per capita expenditure on education, and we're 48th in outcomes for kids.
In January 9th, 1996, the New York Times Magazine, a very relatively liberal
publication, on their front cover, their cover story, dealt with that very question of programs that the state had initiated in an attempt to alleviate poverty. Urban Renewal in 1949, Community Action Program in 1964, Model Cities in 1966, Community Development Block Grants in 1974, Urban Development Action Grants in 1977, Enterprise Zones in 1980, and Empowerment Zones in 1993. This article, written in 1996, concluded that after all of these programs, there's no evidence that any government program made any improvement in any urban community anywhere.
Prior to the Civil Rights Movement, you had poverty, but you did not have the social pathology. You didn't have lots of drug use and abuse. You didn't have a lot of mothers having children out of the context of marriage.
Prior to the 1960s, the black community, even though we had no political rights, didn't have voting rights, were not represented in local government, and some of us being lynched every day, even in the presence of all those economic and social injustices, the black marriage rate in 1930 to 1940 was higher than in the white community. 82% of all black families had a man and a woman raising children. But what happened in 1960, when government intervened with the poverty programs, a major paradigm shift occurred and contributed to the decimation of the family, because welfare policy said if you drop out of school, don't work, have babies, the government will pay you, and the more children you have, the more we'll pay you.
The problem with the war on poverty is it cuckolded the man by the welfare state. The father's role, beyond just insemination, became absorbed by bureaucracy, by the welfare state. And as a result, men were estranged from these circles of giving and responsibility with long-term horizons toward the future, and pushed out into the street, where he often preys on society rather than supports it. The welfare state usurps his critical role in the family, and thus renders the man dispensable. And he responds by attacking the society.
Work and labor ennoble people and give people dignity, give them a sense of value, accomplishment, achievement, and that adds to who people are as human persons created in the image of God. And often what governments do is they rob from people that sense of personal work, responsibility, and dignity and value.
A lot of people who are living and working among the poor tend to think about how the poor have been oppressed. And those are things that are important to look at. Period, they're important. There's another side. There are reasons for poverty that I'd say they're counterintuitive, or they're just hidden, and they're not things that you would think of. There are times when poverty is actually the result of a stupid decision at a bureaucratic level, and not the result of the white man or somebody else trying to hurt somebody.
لوجوس تي في. أن نحضر كل إنسان كاملا في المسيح يسوع.